So I am Julia Jensen. I live in Putney, Vermont and Nantucket, Massachusetts. I am a landscape painter, and although that implies that I'm outside, I am a studio painter. So I am working pretty much entirely in my studio these days. I live in incredibly beautiful places, both here in Vermont and Nantucket. The landscape is just a huge part of my life in both of these places. When I was first learning how to paint, I would set up still lives in the studio because that felt like the easiest, most controlled way to work from life. And I found that painting that way, I learned a lot. I learned how to paint. But it was a very mechanical kind of process. I was really, how do I get something to look three-dimensional? And, it was really about sort of the mechanics of putting together a painting. And as I learned that, I fell in love with the process of painting. And I really am much more interested now in maintaining the gestures and having the experience of how the painting was put together be expressed in the surface of the painting. And I think that landscape is a really good vehicle for that because human beings want to make a story out of surfaces. I think when they're looking at paintings, you see faces and you see recognizable things. And so landscape, it's really easy to tell a story with just a few gestures. And so I think that just landscape naturally marries itself to how I'm painting and what I'm interested in, how I'm interested in laying the paint on the canvas. I always start with an underpainting, a hot color, either Indian yellow or a transparent oxide red, which is they're transparent colors, so they have a lot of glow and fire. And then I will start coming up with the color palette that I'm going to use and start blocking in color. And hopefully at some point during that process, I start finding some little moments that are really working, and then I start building off of those. And so the underpainting may sit overnight and dry. And then working or not, I'll let it sit for a while. I'll come back. I'll see if I was right. Sometimes you're super excited about something and you come back the next day and you realize, I don't know what I was thinking because there's nothing here. And sometimes the whole thing is just not working at all. I'll take my panel and I'll flip it over completely and start trying to find something there to build on. And so the paintings will move around on and off my easel. I'm working on probably at least half a dozen things at any given time. Some paintings will come together in a matter of a couple of hours, and those are really wonderful days, but that's about maybe 1% of the time. And then other paintings, you never know. It could be layer upon layer upon layer. I put paint down, I take paint off. And that's actually part of a wonderful part of the process for me is when I have one painting under there and I've worked on top of it, and then I'll scratch away at it and reveal something that I didn't even realize was under there. I'd forgotten was under there. And so it's building layers, and some paintings will take a year before they're finished. And some paintings, as I said, will happen, like that. And it's a magical, beautiful thing, but it's almost never like that. I find that my perspective in my paintings is floating above things a little bit. And so it's a slightly dreamlike perspective in them. And Vermont and Nantucket are smaller, more intimate spaces. In Vermont, it's hard. We're tree covered. There are a lot of hills, and it's hard to find vast vistas. So I'll start with an idea of where I'm headed, but then through the process, I'll get involved with the painting of the picture. And so depending on what is happening on the surface, I will let the painting lead me. And so it won't necessarily be a specific time or place, but it will be echoes of what I started with what the intention was when I started. But then as the painting takes on a life of its own, I'm really responding to the painting. And so, maybe I'm doing a deep forest and it needs a little bit of light. And so how am I going to get that sense of light in there, but maintain that kind of murky, magical darkness? I hope that I convey something of a sense of mystery. I think what draws me to painting is the magical surprises that happen. And I hope that there's some way in which my paintings can help other people become aware of the world around them and maybe present a way of seeing that maybe other people can get a slightly different perspective on the world around them.